Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in, and a giant thank you to Jodie Goff from the Collective Therapy Hub in Descrobes, Tasmania, for inspiring me to create this video from an event she organised during Brain Injury Awareness Week to help me spread awareness of brain injury, because there are so many people out there with undiagnosed brain injuries who could be getting help. My name is Shane. I had the most amazing childhood growing up here in the historic town of Latrobe, Tasmania, Australia. That taught me so much about life and how to live with these. I did start my career down at Hobart, gaining a trade certificate in precision manufacture while studying manufacturing engineering at university. But I couldn't find a job, so I escaped to the mainland, where I converted Chevrolet Corvettes to right-hand drive, worked in the Boeing factory in Seattle, Washington, and developed business strategies in the space industry. However, I hit a major turning point in life 7 years ago. I live in Canberra, really loving it. Happily married for 6 years, the most amazing 5-year-old boy, Moby. I was working as business development and strategy manager for Lockheed Martin Space Systems Company. Just flown to Edinburgh in Scotland to help organise and run the Global Space Traffic Management Workshop. However, I got home from that trip and I was diagnosed with a T-cell lymphoma cancer. Then spent 12 months in hospital. 24 hours, lived several times. Lost the toes off my right foot, 20 centimetres of my long and short-term memories. My sense of smell, my sense of taste, but not my sense of humour. Because laughter really is the best medicine. I lost my memories due to an acquired brain injury I contracted when bacteria from a surgical wound infiltrated my brain, causing encephalitis, which is brain swelling, basically killing a big chunk of it. It's mainly affected memory. Luckily, the analytical part of my brain is largely intact. Didn't need to learn how to walk and talk again. But I don't remember contracting cancer, being diagnosed, chemotherapy, or a stem cell transplant. I don't remember my first admission to hospital where they cut off my toes and removed my bowel. I don't remember being released. Any time I spent at home, going to accident and emergency a dozen times because everything was acting. My first memory of my entire cancer journey is walking into the hospital for my second admission, looking down and asking the nurse, what happened to my toes? But to say that the brain injury has fundamentally changed my life is a massive understatement. But it's also been such a fascinating journey ever since I've delved into brain injury. I do apologise for the length of this video, but as you'll see, there's just so many different aspects to brain injury. Because our brain for everything we do. Brain injuries are very difficult to understand and they're invisible. The photo on the left is me just before I was diagnosed with cancer at the Global Space Traffic Management Conference. On the right shows me as a disabled participant of the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS, with a brain injury. I wouldn't know I had one, and they're incredibly difficult to diagnose. In 2007, there were 1 in every 45 Australians living with a brain injury. And I suspect that's even more because of the many undiagnosed brain injuries. The analogy that my counsellor helped me come up with is that brain injuries are like labyrinths. It's difficult and exhausting to find your way through the labyrinth of passageways and blind alleys. There are doors scattered throughout the labyrinth that contain information and memories. Some are locked with the keys, others spring open unexpectedly. Occasionally you find a pathway you didn't even know you could go down, and my writing is a good example of that. There is a way through, it's true, but it's different for every one of you. However, brain injuries are simultaneously very well understood by everyone. Please let me explain. Here are some symptoms of a brain injury. I'm sure every single one of you have experienced some or all of these symptoms. Now think of your worst day. It's like that every day for someone with a brain injury. Therefore, you do have a pretty good idea of what it could be like. But at the same time, if you were asked what a brain injury was, you'd probably struggle. As I do too, even though I had one. I deeply desire to succinctly describe a brain injury, and hopefully this video comes close to doing that. I don't remember my time in hospital when I first contracted my brain injury, and that's not unusual for all brain injuries, but I've been told about it. I was in quite a vegetative state. One stage I didn't recognise my wife and son. Another time I confused my wife and sister, and they still haven't forgiven me for that. And I still have issues with facial recognition. And I was downtown with my mother and sister. I went off to do something and came back to meet them in a coffee shop. I wandered over to my sister and said hello to her and a friend. And it slowly dawned on me that her friend was actually my mother. I was distraught. I read my nurse's notes recently. They often described me as pleasantly confused. However, at one stage I was convinced that people were coming to kill me and I was terrified. My sister slept in the chair next to my bed holding my hand. I'd be constantly pulling the catheters out of my arm. Another time I wandered off and was found downstairs in the foyer staring at the Christmas tree. I rang my mother another day and asked her to come and rescue me from the private residence I was in because I was disturbing the occupants. In the morning I rang her and asked her when his dad coming to pick me up. He had unfortunately contracted a diet of cancer down here in Tasmania. I was in hospital in Canberra, and that was soon after he passed away. He'd said he'd come and get me when it was time, I tell her. We both aren't exactly sure if astral travel occurs, but we both believe it's a real possibility. We both also believe that he would have come and seen me if he could. But it's hard to tell if it was just my brain playing tricks on me. I unfortunately have a single memory of that time. I don't remember his diagnosis. He was quick to climb. And get to say goodbye to Tandy's funeral. My family blessed and kept his ashes. We spread them when I came down, allowed me to say my final goodbye. Thank you, family. I recently studied community services and we watched a video about life in an insane asylum. It was frightening to think that was me. Because it's true that 20 years ago I'd been thrown in an insane asylum and I was acting in a similar way. Luckily, times have changed. The hardest part of having a brain injury for me and many other people is the mental fatigue. It's incredibly difficult to describe. It's not a headache. Many of us describe it as a foggy brain because it's hard to find and do things. So, for example, when I returned to work, my boss set me a list of tasks to complete, which was a good idea. I understood the tasks he's assigned. I'd done them before. I was confident I could do them easily again. But every now and then the brain just didn't work. Couldn't do the tasks. We also use our brain for every single thing we do. Just having a peaceful conversation with a friend knocks me around. There's a great word for it, crank, which means being overcome with fatigue. I have to apologise for being a cranker. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about it. Best thing I do is escape all sensory stimuli. 20-minute walk in nature does wonders. Doesn't have to be in a national park. Just a walk around the block clears my head and gives me great ideas every single walk. Prior to my brain injury, I only ever walked to get around and I'd occasionally go bushwalking. But I found that I really enjoyed going for daily walks around the neighbourhood and often find new routes to explore. It was fun just seeing how people had improved their front yards and see what cool things they'd built. Tasmania is leading the way with brain injury support. When I was released from hospital in Canberra, I searched for a brain injury support group. Unfortunately, the previous one had lapsed several years before. Then when I was visiting family in Tasmania, my mother found a support group in Alderton, so I went along and I really enjoyed it. Just talking with people experiencing similar journeys is relaxing, because we understand what we're going through. It inspired me to start a support group in Canberra, and I approached Synapse, who supported me to do that. But others then met for coffee and chat at the Stroke Currajong Hotel in Barton. Unfortunately, I needed to escape the mainland back to my home state, Tasmania, and couldn't find anyone to take over, so I was lapsed again. There are two major groupings of brain injury. Traumatic brain injuries, or TBIs, are the result of a knock to the head, including car accidents, falling over, or concussions from sport. While mine is an acquired brain injury and ABI, which are contracted by internal disease or other medical factors, including strokes, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, Huntington's, lack of oxygen, and alcoholism. Everyone's brain injury is different, because it depends on which part of the brain is injured. The red area here shows where the encephalitis killed the big chunk of my brain. It's in the prefrontal cortex and the neocortex, which mainly affected my long and short-term memories. That part of the brain region also controls executive functioning, including thinking and problem solving. That part was slightly affected. Luckily, my problem solving and thinking are still in the normal range. However, before my brain injury, I was well above average. This impairs my ability to do the wide thinking needed to develop business strategies, which was my career passion. It means being able to step back and look widely across the entire business strategy, and then pick diverse parts of it to combine, which leads the company down a different market segment or product range. It's also called joining the dots. A great example is whilst working in the Boeing Australia Advanced Systems team. I found a Boeing subsidiary company called Spectralab and developed an innovative ground-based solar power plant based on the world's most efficient concentrated photovoltaic solar power cell, which was being used to power Boeing's or satellites. Concentrated photovoltaic is different to rooftop solar. The sun needs to be pointed directly into the cell at all times for it to work. So they generally put it in big reflective satellite dishes that bounce the rays directly into the cell, then track the sun across the sky. But the system they developed was a series of small modules, about a metre and a half, and they vacuum formed a parabola, which they chrome plated, such as the sun overhead bounced right directly into the cell. Didn't need to track the sun, it was much cheaper and more efficient. Now, Hamilton was convincing their leadership to start the business in the US, because Boeing didn't understand the electricity market. Then joined some dots. One dot was that the Boeing international team was actually searching for new opportunities to boost their international presence. So it would be much easier to convince to start a business in Australia. I also joined a dot with another project I was working on, which was the Square Kilometre Array radio telescope. It's being built by a consortium of 13 countries in Western Australia because it's the most remote part of the world possible and so subsequently free of radio waves, mobile telephones, and everything else that interferes with the signal to get from space. The sound made by diesel power generators also interfered with the signal to get from space. Therefore, solar power was the perfect solution. And they could be the launch customer, as it would be ready to open about the same time as we would launch. I was involved in the project as the Boeing representative on the Australian Square Kilometre Array Consortium, which was pulled together to find opportunities for Australian industry involvement as they built the telescope. This led me to join another dot, as the local power companies were also members of the consortium and could help the Boeing company understand the power market better. This led me to work with them and identify all the other cool opportunities where we could sell solar power plants. Unfortunately, I failed at the last hurdle when I was presented to the Boeing leadership team in the US, who decided they didn't want to be in solar power. A stroke of the pen, it was gone, and I sold it off. But it was so cool to have tried, and it was that project that consolidated my new career passion as business strategy development. I have several strategies in place to deal with my memory issues. For my short-term memory, I now take lots of notes. I have a comprehensive calendar in place, and I set many reminders on my phone. Writing down notes is important, not just so you can refer back to them later, but because it uses different neural pathways, which makes it easier to understand and remember. Saying out loud as you write it down also uses a different neural pathway. Using hand movements is another different neural pathway. Using pictures is another different neural pathway. Therefore, get someone to tell me verbally. I'll repeat it back to them, using my hands to explain my understanding. I'll write it down and draw a picture. All that helps me to better understand something and remember it. To cover my long-term memories, I reconnect with friends and colleagues, asking them to tell us stories of our time together. This was so rewarding, talking through old times and all the fun we'd had. I recommend it to everyone. Also discovered some cool things they've been up to. Richard Rawnsley, who I met while gaining a trade certificate in precision manufacture, now had a PhD in agriculture. Descrobes, who I'd worked with in management consulting, had started an orphanage in Lesotho, Southern Africa, called Sofio, that helped street kids get off the coast street. I would also glide through locations in my brain, thinking about the things I'd done there and who I'd done them with. Away for years, but here you are. I've been living half a world away, but I've never been alone. Let those misty memories lead me back home. Let those misty memories lead me back home. So, for example, one day I glided through Sprayton and went past Dorsey's place, who my dad knew really well. So I ducked in to recall crawling about his big sheds as kids. I went past the home of my best mate in high school and thought about all the fun we'd had doing blockies on a Friday and Saturday night at Bluff. And past the Big Apple, where you used to get the freshest fruit and veggies, but you can't even get an apple there now. Then I went past a factory that I could remember my dad taking me to many times, but I couldn't remember who it was or what they did. Then one day I was driving past in real life with my mother, and she reminded me that was where Dad's first job was, with Jimmy Trammers. You also really don't know what you've got until it's gone. I'll never have taking memories for granted ever again. I no longer just aimlessly stroll through places. I sit back and bask in the memories of what I've done there and who I did it with. Even better, I now get to share those memories with my son, and we make new memories. I have so many funny stories to tell you about my memory issues. I'll tell you all the ones I can remember. My funniest memory issues occurred when I returned to work for Lockheed Martin Space Systems Company. Because a key strategy to returning to work is knowing where it is. I honestly couldn't remember where the office was. As it turned out, they'd moved a week before I went on long-term leave. However, I don't have a single memory of the move and talking about moving. One day I walked into the building and suddenly it didn't feel right. I'd walked into the building next door. Another day I walked into the right building, jumped into the lift and spent a good couple of minutes trying to remember which floor my office was on. There were only 3 floors to choose from. On some day I opened up my lunch and found a nicely buttered roll, but I forgot the salad. Another day a guy wandered into my office and we'd clearly been talking not long ago, but had no idea who he was or what he was talking about. That's improved too, and while my facial recognition is terrible, I'll generally remember who they are and what they do. One day I was doing some research and I'd started to notice a small Australian company make some big moves in the space industry. Recently acquired a geospatial analysis company and they had a network of ground stations. Suddenly I joined the dots. Once they launched a constellation of nanosatellites, they had everything I needed to set up as a major new competitor to our company. So I raced into the boss's office to tell him all about it, the deep dive analysis I was going to conduct. You did that last month, he said. Sure enough, I went back and found it. Luckily I had a great boss when I returned to work. He worked really closely with me and he helped me explore if I could still develop business strategies as effectively as I could previously. Therefore, when he asked me to resign, I could see that it was the best way forward for both of us, because a space agency had been established while I was in hospital, and he needed someone full-time who could respond to the rapidly changing market. Still only work part-time due to neural fatigue. I could have fought for that job and stayed working there, but I used to be banging my head against a brick wall. Therefore, I respected my boss's request, and I flew one wing and a prayer. I wasn't even sure what type of job I could do anymore. In fact, the job popped up the day after he asked me to resign as Business Development Manager for CSIRO's space program. With my resume experience, I was walking. Many people would encourage me to apply. But I didn't waste our time in applying, because I'd just be back banging my head against the brick wall. I did work with a disability employment services company. Luckily they measured on how many jobs I'd applied for and weren't equipped to help me figure out what types of jobs I would be better suited doing. I approached a couple of Cluey ex-colleagues, and they helped me to figure out that quality assurance and delivering training courses would be much better jobs for me, because I knew them really well. They didn't need the wide thinking skills I lacked, and I really enjoyed working. I also discovered the amazing Employ Me Plus program run by the Brain Injury Association of Tasmania. They sat down with me and helped me explore what I enjoyed, what I was still good at, where I could go, and most importantly, the supports I could ask employers to provide for me. I previously only considered supports to be physical items to help people deal with disabilities, like custom chairs. However, asking for the ability to excuse myself from high-sensory environments for a 20-minute brain break or an organisational chart with photos to help me with my photo recognition were absolutely supports I could request. They then produced this short video sharing this information, which I then shared with potential employers. Tasmania really is leading the way in brain injury support. Hello, I'm Dane, currently in Tasmania, and I wanted to have a chat to you about who I am and the things I enjoy and what I'm interested in doing. Some things I enjoy doing are going for walks to clear my head and community activities. I like helping the community. I started a brain injury support group in Canberra because the previous one had lapsed several years before. I'm interested in creative writing, and I recently published my first book about my great-great-great-grandfather, James McGee, who was a convict transported to Tasmania in 1830. I enjoy spending time with people. I'm pretty open, to be honest, because I enjoy easy to chat with and get along with just about everybody. I enjoy connecting with diverse cultures because it's an opportunity to learn. I sustained my brain injury 5 years ago. I'd been in hospital battling cancer for 12 months, which is in remission. My acquired brain injury occurred when bacteria from a surgical wound infiltrated my brain, causing encephalitis. I'd like to tell you about 4 things I do really well. Number 1 is facilitating critical and creative thinking. By asking questions to help people explore their current environment and understand the root cause of their issues. This then inspires and empowers them to create a new vision. Number 2 is research, as I enjoy exploring diverse subjects and material. Number 3 is then writing, presenting and communicating these. And take complex concepts and definitions and translate them into forms that a diverse audience can understand. And finally, number 4 is stakeholder engagement. Building collaborations and communities of practice. By bringing together the strengths of the team together and then applying these strengths to offset any weaknesses in the team. It's really important for me to work because it gives me a sense of purpose. Working to get something done and achieve outcomes gives me satisfaction, and I thrive when I do this. For me, getting jobs means that I'm helping make a difference for someone's business, and I'm helping people solve their problems. The ideal workplace for me isn't necessarily in a specific sector or industry. I'm open to all, and I use my skill sets across many industries. I have a career history of transferring my skills across industries, including defence, automotive, aerospace, space and manufacturing industries. I enjoy the diversity of this. The impacts of my brain injury include tiredness, specifically mental tiredness, memory issues including short and long term, sensitivity to noise, difficulty with facial recognition. It also impacts my ability to do the wide thinking needed to develop business strategies. Some of the supports I mainly require at work include taking brain breaks, having the ability to switch off for short periods when I get tired, being able to go for a walk or get away for a bit, a quiet space to work, tools to assist me to recognise people, including organisational charts with photos, or even people just introducing and reintroducing themselves when they approach me. When you ask me to do something, please tell me verbally and then follow up with written instructions. Regular check-ins are good. Having me explain what I'm doing and where I think it's going helps me organise my thoughts and ensure I'm on the right track. Get me involved in a supporting role in your business strategy activities because it will help me learn new neural pathways around damage and get me back up to speed with the wide thinking needed to develop business strategies. Working around 12 to 15 hours per week over 5 days, 2 to 3 hours per day, would be the best approach for me at the moment. This is because of the mental fatigue that I experience. I'm flexible at how these hours are spread over the week. Ideally, I would like to start at that amount. However, I'd like to increase this. Ideally, this would involve working up over time and aiming for full-time hours when the time is right. Neurological assessments have shown an improvement, which gives me confidence that I can increase my hours. I'm also working with the University of Canberra Hospital Rehabilitation team to help me increase my hours. As I was searching for a new job, I got a second interview with a small, innovative Australian company. So I sat down and completed some analysis on what they were up to so I could be prepared for the interview. As I was doing it, it slowly dawned on me it was the same small company identified as a major emerging competitor, which had been my very last task at Lockheed Martin. That got me excited. I was literally days away from getting a job with them. I landed another cool job working in quality assurance for a small, innovative Australian software development company with outstanding flexible working arrangements. It made it so much easier to deal with my acquired brain injury. They embraced remote working, and it wasn't unusual for us to have a meeting with someone in every state of Australia. This enabled me to work from home, away from the sensory nightmare of a busy office, where I didn't feel guilty about taking the brain breaks I needed to stay productive. I also spent large chunks of time working down in Tasmania with my family. I was so lucky to have a diverse experience to draw upon, then find a company that was so experienced in remote working, who taught me how to do it so collaboratively. I still went in the office once a week because face-to-face time is still important, and my facial recognition ability was still a challenge here. In fact, on my very first day working, I rocked up and there's a guy at the front door talking on his mobile phone. I figured he's an employee, he could take me to the boss's office, so I stand back and wait. It was the boss! Luckily, he laughed along with me. And that's the best support anyone could offer. Laugh along with me. I then worked there for 3 years, and there was still only a couple of people I could recognise facially out of the 20 people that work there. Many people don't have diverse experience to draw upon, and are left wondering what they're going to do without assistance. I deeply desire to help these people. I approached Business Action Learning Tasmania to establish an employment training centre for people with a disability and all other at-risk Tasmanians. I came up with an idea to create a production line for small household wind turbines. They're really easy to make with household tools and can recharge a mobility scooter or similar. We'll then teach participants lean action learning that they will apply to the production line to improve its efficiency. Also further develop the wind turbine and sell them at local markets. This will upskill participants because lean action learning can be applied in all businesses and also allow participants to try different types of jobs to find what they're better suited for in their current condition. I run a career coaching program alongside and will create videos similar to this one the Brain Injury Association of Tasmania created for me. We're currently applying for funding and I can't wait to get started. It's possible for me to regain the ability to do the wide thinking needed to develop business strategies. The brain injuries block the neural pathways I had to develop to do the wide thinking. We can find new neural pathways around the damage. It's a process called neuroplasticity. Good analogy is a road network, and the roads are neural pathways, and there's roadworks for an accident that you can't get through. Simple how my neurons can't get through my neural pathways. You have to find a way around. It's going to be longer. You'll probably get lost, but every now and then you find a shortcut, which is so cool. The best treatment I found to help me learn new neural pathways is called neurofeedback. I discovered it after my ex-wife inquired one day when I knew what the brain training centre did. It was literally down the street from our house. I'd been walking past it on my daily walks. The irony that I've never looked into what they did isn't lost on me. Made an appointment and felt immediately comfortable when I walked in. It's a small practice run by psychologist John Hegg. John conducted a brain scan, then wonderfully talked me through the results and how neurofeedback would assist me. It stuck leads on my head and I started watching a movie I'd selected from their large DVD collection. The neurofeedback machine then monitors my brain activity and rewards my brain with clearer pictures and sound when it's operating effectively. This trains the brain to operate more efficiently. Wow, my friends and families all saw substantial improvement in my cognitive function and better stability in my emotional state almost immediately. My brain feels much clearer after undergoing a session. I get clarity of thoughts immediately after. Physiotherapy is another treatment because hand and body movement and building muscle help the brain learn new neural pathways. I know this because my boss was good friends with Tina McIntosh, who started Brain Changer, which helps people deal with chronic pain by learning new neural pathways. When I was Googling brain injury treatments, I came across a NeuroStudio. They're a gym that specialises in neurological therapy and healthy ageing. They conducted an assessment in my first session and set up a training program based on my physical challenges and goals, which included the stationary bike leg presses, balance exercises, etc. They went in once or twice a week and to work out. They were so friendly and helpful. Being fit and healthy is a good strategy in itself because feeling good reduces the impact of sensory stimuli. I'd actually avoided gyms my entire life, but I found myself enjoying this from the very first session. They showed me each of their activities and explained how to get the best results from each session. Then gave me a run sheet that I could follow. From there I shared the gym with a couple of people every week and we completed our individual sessions independently with a couple of gym staff on hand to help out when required. Therapy is another treatment to help me learn new neural pathways. I'd never pursued art before my brain injury, primarily because I had a terrible high school art teacher who ruined it for me. However, I could see the benefits and decided to give it a go. While I was holidaying in Tasmania, I had more time to do it. I've since found that it heals me on many different levels. Producing art is calming and soothing. It helps rest my brain. The movement needed to produce art has also been shown to help people learn new neural pathways. It improves my spatial awareness and body control. As we previously discussed, the use of pictures is also a key strategy in dealing with impaired cognitive function. Because seeing a picture, writing about it, and saying it out loud all use different neural pathways, which aid comprehension and memory. I've since used it to decorate my house, and also planted a fountain in the backyard that looks like a smiley face. The frontal lobe can also affect voluntary movement, speech, and problems with social behaviours. Got so lucky. Many brain injury patients lose control of the ability to control their emotions. Just the slightest derogatory comment can trigger severe involuntary language and anger.
You know what I'm talking about. The kind of feeling that builds in the pit of your stomach and makes your teeth clench and absolutely want to destroy the person who...
I realise it happens and freely warn people. There's not much they can do about it. They need to recognise the early signs and remove themselves from the situation. Many other brain injury patients struggle to talk and are difficult to understand. That must be so isolating for them.
I'm going to show you this picture. Can you tell me what's happening in that picture?
It's a ball sliding.
Okay. Can you make up a story about it?
It's a ball not slide.
Okay. Anything else going on?
He's sliding down snow.
Okay.
So happy I didn't have this issue. It's incredibly difficult to deal with. My brain injury has affected me completely the opposite. It's impaired my ability to feel emotions, which is a condition called alexithymia. I struggle to recognise and describe my feelings. I've lost so much during my cancer journey. I had to work in a job that I loved. Can't go on long bushwalks, especially over rocky tracks due to nerve damage on the soles of both feet. My mother does want me to spread rashes on top of Crater Mountain. Hopefully I've recovered enough to do that when I need to. Lost my 10-year marriage. Before I met her, I'd never even been in a long-term relationship. She storms through my loneliness and rescued me from a life of solitude. Could no longer ride a motorbike and finish my round Australia motorcycle adventure. I lost my father, who contracted and died of cancer down in Tasmania while I was battling cancer in hospital in Canberra. I could no longer play field hockey. My mother set me down in the playground in primary school and told me in no uncertain terms your brother's playing field hockey. You are too. I really didn't want to, but there was no arguing with that. It's off at X30s and it's such a good time. It's so really good for it. Should be drowning in grief, but I barely shed a tear. I know that I'm sad, but I don't feel the sadness, so I don't get wrapped up in it. I'm also not grieving, because it's hard to grieve what you don't remember. I don't remember meeting my ex-wife or dating her. I managed to recall some memories of moving in with her at the birth of our son and the wedding, but not a single memory of the honeymoon. Probably a good thing, right? There's no rhyme nor reason about what I remember and don't. The bacteria wasn't selective. A couple of years before my cancer journey, I'd organised my dad's 80th birthday and also made it a McCormack family reunion. We held it at Grindelwald and I created a photo book of his life story and got up and made a speech about his life and influence. That was my final goodbye. Unfortunately, I don't have a single memory of that night. I can remember starting to organise it, but that's it. My mother and I even went back to Grindelwald to see if I could trigger some memories. I even stood in the spot where I delivered the speech, but I didn't get a single memory back. At the same time, it's so nice to know that I did organise that for him. But every now and then a memory comes out of nowhere. For example, I'm currently working on the history of my home down the road. I can remember a chicken farm down Shah Road. I remember one of my friends taking me there to look at it, and they were doing some innovative things. I remember where it was located, but I couldn't for the life of me remember its name. It bugged me for weeks. Then suddenly, out of the blue, when I wasn't even thinking about it, it came along and gently tapped me on the shoulder and quietly said, Aberfeldy. Oh my God, it was the most incredible feeling. Also dealing with it, because my parents taught me to be master of my fate and captain of my soul, which is brilliantly described by William H. Henley's poem, Victor.
Out of the night that covers me, black as pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the full clutch of circumstance, I've not minced, cried out, under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloodied. But I'm out, beyond this place of wrath and tears, looms but the horror of the shade. Yet the menace of the is one, and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment to scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Therefore, I'm not wincing or crying aloud. I'm the master of my fate, captain of my soul. I'm focusing on how I can use all the things I've learnt from these times to create new times. Yin Yoga at the Collective Therapy Hub is a key therapy that has helped me regain my feelings. That's because it's about focusing on how my body is feeling. The body has the same physiological reactions to each of our feelings. You ever thought about how your feelings feel? Even though the word tells us we are feeling our feelings, we tend to associate feelings with our heart and head. I'm not paying attention to how my body feels and my feelings arise, and it helps me identify them and becoming stronger. Thank you, Joe. Hello, I'm Dane, and I started practicing Yin Yoga here at the Collective Therapy Hub late last year. Wow, it's amazing, and it's helping me deal with an acquired brain injury so well. Just walking into a space is relaxing because of the quiet spirit Jodie has fostered that introduces healing and hope. Soft rhythm music guides me to my spot. I take a seat, close my eyes, and feel the space. I remain closed throughout the practice to reduce sensory load, which helps us to connect with our body and soul. It starts with a group chant of Om, a 1,000-year-old tradition representing the sound of the universe, which connects us all. During a session, I can feel my central nervous system thanking me. This is helping me with my alexithymia, which is a symptom of my brain injury, and results in me being unable to describe and feel my feelings. But because I'm very mindfully paying attention to how my body is feeling during the yoga session, it helps me connect with my feelings at that moment in time, as our body physiologically responds to each feeling in different ways. Jodie also wonderfully helps us practice affirmations during the practice. She reminds us that we should be grateful for what we have, to thank everyone in our lives who are helping us, that we are enough, that we are worthy, that we should forgive people, especially ourselves. It is helping my brain injury because it's been shown that when you relax your body, mind and heart, the brain waves operate differently, which generates new neural pathways via neuroplasticity. The body movement also increases blood flow to the brain, which aids neuroplasticity, especially in the hippocampus, which regulates memory. Most importantly, it is training me to better rest and relax physically and mentally. The affirmations are an important part of this rest, because if you can recognise the areas in your life where you're enough and worthy, that results in less stress and worry about needing to be better. The session finishes with also known as corpse pose, which is about lying flat and consciously resting every muscle and fibre in your body. The feeling of this is amazing. Total relaxation I've never felt before. We then give ourselves a big hug and thank ourselves for this wonderful experience. It's also nice being the token guy in the class, as I've spent so many years working in male-dominated industries. Thank you. Music is another therapy helping me find my feelings. I'd never been a music person previously. I had tried to learn to play the cornet because my hometown has the longest continuously playing brass band in Australia, but I've never been good at blowing my own horn. I enjoyed music in my teens, but never went to concerts. However, during my cancer journey, I found many theme songs that helped me stay strong. I'm told that during my early hospital stay, I'm Still Standing was my theme song. Because I'm still standing better than I ever did. Then after I was released from hospital, I started using Spotify Shuffle, partially because I couldn't remember what I enjoyed, but every now and then a song would speak to my current circumstances. I would feel it deeply. I'd learn the lyrics and sing my theme songs on my daily walks. Drum therapy here at the Collective Therapy Hub is also helping. It helps me get into a rhythm and calms me down. Damage to my temporal lobe does cause me issues with sensitivity to noise. It doesn't cause immediate damage when I hear a loud noise, but I'm much more aware of all the sounds. This scene looks peaceful and calm, right? But because I'm much more aware of all the sounds around me, over the time it gives me a bad head, which isn't a headache. Also due to sensory overload, because if there's lots of noise, there's usually lots of people around. Temporal load also causes tinnitus. I can clearly remember waking up in hospital and hearing crickets all around me and thinking, oh, I'm in the forest. They told me another time I asked for bird sounds. I guess I was raised in the outdoors. I subconsciously knew how much it would help in the current situation. The temporal load also affected my libido. I've also been diagnosed with a lack of testosterone, therefore it's hard to determine the root cause. However, this combined with my inability to feel emotions meant that I struggled to be intimate with my wife after I returned home. I couldn't tune into how she was feeling and provide the warm touches and shy glances she needed to feel loved. I also couldn't remember how I previously did it. The basal ganglia is in the core of the brain and is responsible for motor control of the body. This can cause limb weakness, balance issues, and abnormal movements. It's difficult to know if this affected me too much because it also removed the toes off my right foot, which caused significant balance issues. However, the rehabilitation hospital was awesome and they set me up with a Clock Yourself app, which runs through exercises where you step around a clock face, which strengthens the leg muscles that look after balance. The vestibular system in the inner ear creates a sense of balance and spatial orientation. The damage I suffered here also causes sensitivity to head movements. This one was incredibly difficult for me to diagnose. I'd get out of the car after a long drive and be terribly fatigued. But driving in the car is a terribly high sensory environment with noise and movement. Therefore, it's probably a combination of all the above. However, I also noticed how badly my head became foggy after working in the garden, which isn't a high sensory environment. I'd paid high attention to what was happening when I was in the garden, and it became obvious that it was the head movement that was causing my foggy brain. My brain misinterprets where my body is in relation to the surrounding area, and sends signals to my eyes to move when they don't need to, resulting in slight dizziness. This also increases the sensory load. Every type of head movement affects me here, especially when I'm in the middle of a group having a conversation, because I have to keep turning my head to focus on different speakers. To combat that situation, I try and position myself to limit head movement. But there are many situations where you can't do that. Building stuff is a great example. When I was growing up, my dad always had a couple of projects on the go in the backyard. Everything from building us a cover house, new veranda, dog kennel, garden beds. Here's my very first memory of life. It's building cool shit with my dad, rocks for the garden edging. I proudly carried on the tradition, building my son a cubby house, my ex-wife a chicken coop, stairs down to the backyard, and a lovely little fountain in the corner. I deeply desire to pass this proud family tradition on to my son, but all the bending down low, inspecting things and lining things up sends my head spinning. Driving the car is also difficult due to the bumping and turning. Going up steep hills seems to be even worse, which could be an attitude thing. I have the same issues in an airplane, but I also get clarity of thought at 20,000 feet. I first noticed this when a flight inspired me to write the theme song for my first book. The idea came to me in the airport. I was working with Kate Burke at the time, who was a software design lead for the company I was working for, and we got along really well. She was so easy to work with and had great ideas for everything. In her spare time, she was an award-winning singer for the New Graces. She combined her creative and software design skills beautifully, and that inspired me to try the same thing. But I didn't even know where to start. I eventually decided to get in touch with her when I landed to get some tips. But as we reached 20,000 feet, the ideas for a theme song came flooding in. I'd written it before we landed. At the same time, it took me a week to recover from the flight. Lying down is the best strategy in these situations because my head doesn't move and can rest.
We're two convicts on a ship this afternoon. You're shackled to me. One thing we've left to do. Discover us, creating your new colony. 1 mile to every inch of your cliffs like porcelain. Flat-top plains and soaring mountains. You want freedom? We'll build it. A new colony of mateship. Take all those big chains and break 'em. This is bound to be your wow. Tasmania is a wonderland. Tasmania is a wonder, we'll build it proudly. Tasmania is a wonderland. Freedom is mine, all mine, all mine. Feels so good, but it hurts sometimes. Tasmania is a wonderland.
I also have quite a bad sensitivity to pressure on the head, for example with my noise sensitivity issues. The first treatment many suggest is noise cancelling headphones, which sounds like a good idea. Unfortunately, the pressure they exert on my skull is far worse than being exposed to the noise. Even wearing a loose-fitting hat causes issues.
The parietal lobe is at the back and top of the brain and controls sensory integration, language, and the spatial coordinate system. This area is quite badly damaged. I lost my sense of smell and my sense of taste, which has been fascinating. Many people consider this would be quite disturbing for me, but to be honest, compared with fatigue and memory issues, it's a walk in the park. It's the least of my problems. I also don't have a clear image of what it was like when I did have a sense of smell and sense of taste, just some really vague memories. The most surprising aspect of this was coffee. Before my brain injury, I would search endlessly for the best cup of coffee in town. I wasn't happy till I found it. But now I can't smell or taste. The best cup of coffee in town tastes the same as a cup of black instant coffee. Now every cup makes me happy. But even though I can't taste the food, I still enjoy eating it because my other senses have been heightened. And this results in me enjoying some foods more than others. The most pronounced food was cauliflower, which I'm sure you'll agree is quite tasteless. There's clearly a nutrient in there I need, because it's now my favourite food. I now eat a carrot instead of a chocolate bar, because I can feel it's better for me. It's no longer about delicious, it's about nutritious. The brainstem is another area that was damaged with a brain injury, which can cause nausea. I can clearly remember walking into the dining room at the rehabilitation hospital my first day after being transferred and thinking, this is cool, we've got a restaurant. 10 minutes later I was spewing everywhere. How embarrassing. Once again, it's difficult to know if my brain injury is causing this because I also had bowel surgery when adhesions formed on my bowel wall that needed to be surgically removed. When we wondered why this was happening, we picked up that it was mainly chewy food like meat. The doctor later suggested that it was psychological without referring to the brain injury, which I laughed at because I never felt nervous about eating. At the same time, during my time in hospital, I never threw up in the dining room, never in my room. Also, the cause dizziness, and my best example is walking out onto the lookout at Leaving Canyon. I enjoyed the short walk there, it was feeling good. But as soon as I walked out and looked down through the mesh floor, my head sank to the bottom of the canyon, swirling the whole way. Damage to the brainstem can also cause abnormal sleep patterns. This is very common for all brain injuries. Strangely, I slept quite well while I was in hospital. It was only when I got home that I started waking up at midnight every night. I could often get back some sleep afterwards, but generally only 20 minutes at a time. We go to a sleep doctor and we performed a sleep study which confirmed minor sleep apnea. Fortunately, there was little else they could help me with. In fact, the sleep doctor had the very same issue, and his advice was to roll with it. I expected that surviving on 2 to 3 hours of sleep per night would be quite debilitating. However, I'm coping with it quite well, and it's a great opportunity to get some running done. Another fascinating aspect was losing my sense of direction. I previously had a great sense of direction thanks to my father who'd taken my brother and I out in the bush chopping wood, hunting kangaroos and catching trout. It was always ensure that we knew where we were and how to get back to the ute. This then combined with my memory issues in hospital. I'd wake up thinking that I was in my childhood home. I honestly lay there listening to my parents talking in their bedroom. When I was released from hospital, I can remember walking out and thinking, holy moly, how am I going to get home? I had no concept of how to get there. Plus I didn't need to because I was being driven everywhere. To deal with this one, I actively paid attention to where we were going and which way I thought was next.
Oh no! Wow!
My sense of direction finally returned. Phew! That was a relief, I can assure you. It's very comforting to know where you are in the world. I often still wake up and have to figure out where I am in Australia. Often I open up Google Maps to find out. Also, because I wake up at midnight, I often go to bed early, and that's generally before sunset during summer. On a couple of occasions, I've woken up soon after falling asleep. The sun is out, I've checked my phone, it's 8 o'clock. I get excited because I've slept in, so I quickly get up and go eat breakfast. My mother has beaten me up, and we should go for a walk. What are you doing, she asked me. 8 o'clock at night. My love of writing was reawakened in the rehabilitation hospital. Many people were suggesting that I write about my experience. I had nothing better to do, so I thought, why not? I started writing about what was happening to me. I found it was such a great strategy to better understand what was happening to me and how I was reacting to it, which then helped me develop strategies to deal with it. As I approached returning to work, everyone was telling me that I'd be a changed man. I believed them, but couldn't remember who I was. This led me to start exploring the types of jobs I'd done in the past, and it gave me so much confidence as I thought about returning to work, because I'd done some cool things. I also traced key learnings from my childhood that had nailed my career. For example, working for Ray Callender as a paperboy at the news agency down the road taught me so much about the value of preparation. I had to get myself up at 5 a.m. to ride down. I needed to ensure my bike was well maintained so I didn't break down halfway around, and I wore clothing ready for rain, hail, snow, and heavy winds. Most importantly, it taught me about the value of customer engagement. Because while I was predominantly just cycling around the streets hurling newspapers into yards, I also go door to door on a Saturday night selling the newspapers, and I got to know the customers. I then no longer just throw the newspapers carelessly. I make sure there was in good position for them and easy to find. For example, there was one lady in a block of units. I delivered these newspapers by putting them in the new mailbox out the front, as the complex was quite difficult to navigate on a bike, especially with a big crate of 100 newspapers on the back. But I'd noticed she had found it difficult to get around, so I'd slowly and carefully navigate the unit block every morning and deliver it to her door. Regular customers also gave me a tip, and I'd make more money from tips on a Saturday night than from delivering them 6 days a week in the mornings. Those skills I learnt then helped me develop business strategies in the space industry. Therefore, I started writing my childhood story. It occurred to me I should just jam it all together and into an autobiography. But I do warn you that it's a long read. It's a celebration of everything important in my life. I had a lot to celebrate. Also emphasise just how important history is, because it helps to make us who we are. So I'm writing a series of creative history, non-fiction articles and books with a personal connection. I find an historically important location like my hometown Latrobe, or activity like recreational fishing in Tasmania. I tell its history while telling the story of my own history in that location or undertaking the activity. You can read all about it on my author page, including a series of articles exploring how I survived and thrived through my cancer journey. Also a series of articles exploring how I created my diverse career. The first book I've self-published is about my great-great-grandfather, who was a convict transported to Tasmania in 1830. He was a free settler and then got the free settler's daughter pregnant and married and lived happily ever after. It's called Exile to Exalt It, because even though the convicts were exiled half around the world, let's exalt them for helping create this wonderful country we now live in. I've also explored how the convicts, who were exiled for opposing British ideals, went on to create one of the world's most democratic and multicultural nations. They saw it as an opportunity to create the country they always wanted to live in. I've also been very glad to be a participant in the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS. I never thought I'd be happy about being officially disabled, but I've received some great treatment and support. I've provided with great social supports by their drivers who provide transport, but more importantly, companionship. It's often nice just to sit in a coffee shop and have a great chat with them. The change supports me regularly, but I get along with everyone they send. Well, it's fair to say my facial recognition and memory issues have been made life interesting. I'd often be at the front waiting for them trying to remember which driver I had and which car they drove. I called it driver bingo. I'd be like, I think that's the older guy that drives a little runabout. Is that it? Nah, it definitely wasn't the BMW. Actually, it could have been the four-wheel drive wagon. We're going to have a lady today. I also popped in a shop one day and they opened the door of the car to jump in when the driver loudly exclaims, "Excuse me, sorry, wrong car." As we return to the car after an adventure, I will hang back so I don't walk straight past their car. The NGS also funded neurofeedback, art therapy, physiotherapy and yin yoga. Unfortunately, the recent review removed funding for all these treatments, citing a lack of scientific evidence they will work. Luckily, they've reinstated art therapy. That's nearly every single treatment I'm receiving for my disability. All that we're left with are social supports, which are important, but also like to get better. Therefore, I have an administrative tribunal coming up next month. I've asked for a review of the decision to stop funding. I expect they'll uphold the findings from the review, and that I'll then have to pursue other avenues. But it's important, not just for me, but for also many other participants. Thank you, everyone. It really has been such a fascinating journey being diagnosed with a brain injury. The brain really doesn't understand itself very well. My thirst for knowledge is delving deeply. I hope this presentation has been informative. I'd love to hear if you have learned anything, or if there are other areas you'd like to explore more. Well, I'm much worse off because of my brain injury. There are many areas I'm better off because of it. It has slowed me down and much more appreciative of life. Never take it for granted ever again. I have a much deeper respect for everything that is helping me to live a happy life. Never would have published a book if I hadn't lost my long-term memories. I never would have started a disability employment training centre. I thank my brain injury for giving me these opportunities. Beacon, not broken.